How we doing? It's Dylan again from EMC Fab, and we just got this 2006 Suzuki LTR450, and it's been bored out. I don't know. I think like to 500, if I'm not mistaken. We were talking to the customer about this, and I believe it was bored out to 500. So I wanted to make a quick video because we're at the point now to where it had a no start issue. The starter clutch was bad. I replaced that and did an oil change, and now so essentially this thing's fuel injected, and the customer had a DynoJet Power Commander FC installed. Oh, I don't know. I think he said a couple of years ago. And when he had this installed by the shop, it had so at wide open, it would be perfectly fine. When he was out in the dunes, it would be fantastic. And then as soon as he would be wide open and then offload, pull the clutch in, it would just die instantly, and it would be a hell of a time to start back up again. So what we're gonna do is, I had learned that the base tune on this Power Commander FC is supposedly set for an 06 Suzuki LTR450 stock air filter, stock exhaust. Now, not only is this thing bored out to 500, and not only is this not a stock air filter and a stock exhaust, it's got a stainless header and a DASA end on it, muffler on it. There's obviously got to be a tune issue somewhere. Part of the reason why it's kind of a bit of a slug on the low end, but it's fine on the high end, and as soon as you let off, it shuts off. So right now, I'm repairing there was an O2 sensor that I don't know who actually used it, possibly for tuning, but the sensor bung was shit, and the threads inside were all messed up, and so I cut old one off. I'm welding a new one on, and I just got in a 030300 AEM air fuel gauge, ratio controller kit, the X series, I believe. It's a very common setup, but I'm gonna make my own custom little onboard air fuel controller reader to measure AFR whenever I'm doing power sports stuff, like tuning, fuel injected stuff. I don't have one yet, so since we have to do all this on this one, I'm gonna make one for this one, and then I can read AFR on any other fuel injected project that comes in the shop. So we're gonna keep making this right now, and we'll eventually get to tuning this thing and seeing if the AFR is correct or not. Exhaust is all installed, and we got the new O2 bung on there. So that's what we're looking for. That's good. Now we can actually install an O2 sensor. I might make a bracket that can this isn't permanent, obviously. This is for all things that I work on, all power sports stuff I work on, but usually it's going to have a bar or handlebar of some kind, whatever I work on. So I think what I can do is just make a bracket that then, because I think I have some, like, I bought some aftermarket handlebar clamps on Amazon. I think, like, it's just it clamps onto a bar, and then there's like a threaded stem or of something. There's like a little arm with a thread in it, so you can like mount lights to bars, like for side by sides and whatnot. I think I have a couple of those laying around, and I can probably use one of those to mount this gauge on the quad, so when I go and actually test it under load, I'm looking right at it. So because this the only downside to this method, it's the cheapest, but the only downside is I can't data log it, so I'll just have to wide open and just look down at it while I'm going, because it's very simple. Like, I don't need a whole lot of like numbers on a data log to figure this out. All the tuning is on this is adding 10% of fuel each click on low, mid, and high, and low is a third of, like, each of these is a third of the RPM range. So this is like from idle to like 1500 to 2000 RPM. Mid is from 2000 to 4000 ish, and then and so forth. And high would be the last 2/3, so maybe 5000, 550, and then 7,000. I'm not sure what this thing redlines at, but that's the gist. Is it's every third of the power band of the RPM range is what that does. And so yeah, all I would have to do is wide open throttle on idle, and then watch the AFR as each third of the RPM range changes to each low, mid, and high spot of the controller. After a bit of wiring, there's still a little bit of a mess here. I plugged in, so I've got the sensor, the wideband sensor, screwed in right there, ready to go. 12 volt, and then the ground. So I just have that to the battery. And what I did was just wire in a toggle switch. So when we switch this on, the gauge should light up. Okay, sensor heated up and it read full lean, so that means we should be good. She's working. We got a good reading. That's awesome. It's working really well. Okay, I just got finished with designing this. So here's the thing. I was going to just find a light tube mount or whatever I thought I had left lying around. Not only did the one that I had wasn't, this is too small of a tube that I had. There's no flat spots on this guy, and that's not part of the tube, it's just a brace. So there's no way I can really mount that gauge. Being able to visibly see it, it would be like sideways or something, or crooked and angled down if I tried to do it that way. So what I did was a little overkill, but it works. Excited to see how it turns out, but it's good, especially, or what it's gonna do is it's gonna let me see this guy. Like, if I'm sitting down, where this is gonna be at is about right here, just like that, angled up a little bit, and it'll be pointing at me right there, which will be perfect view to see that guy. So I drew this guy up, which that's the mounting point, and it just kind of, and then these are the tabs deals that are bent up at about not a 90, but just past like maybe 110, 120 degrees this way, so it's angled upwards. However that looks best. It'll be bent here, and this guy is to hold the switch to the left side of the gauge as well, so that's easy to access. So yep, just a special bracket that'll, I guess, only be for the LTR450, unless I can, I mean, it's for, there's a chance that it could be for other quads, because that's where a mirror mount would go. It's common to see those on a lot of quads and bikes, so maybe that's a good spot. That it'll work on multiple vehicles. So here is how it's actually in scale has turned out in sheet cam. Is that guy right there. So mount there. Too little. I'm just going to try to do a pierce because it's an 1/8 inch hole. It's a small one, so I'll try to drill that one out, do it as small as I can. I did like a 0.08 hole there. I'm not sure what my kerf width is on this. I think it's 0.5, so there's a chance it might do a little tiny like jitter, which will be fine to get those lined up for the AFR gauge. And then there's the hole for and the tab for the switch on the side there. So we'll get this thing cut out and see how it looks. It's looking pretty good. All right, here we go. I did it at a 90 because I noticed that this is already at an angle. So I put this up here. It's gonna go right there. And that's already coming up at an angle. Fuck, that looks so good. Nice. That looks really good. Let's go ahead and get that mounted. Check this shit out. The wiring is, doesn't have to be permanent because obviously it's not gonna actually stay on this thing. It's just for tuning purposes, but battery box closed, power and ground coming up. I just got the loom kind of wrapped and sitting on the gas tank here, and we got this bracket turned out really fucking good. There we go. That's better. That bracket looks fantastic, and I forgot there was one little, so right there in that corner, that was the only like modification I had to do to the bracket that I forgot. Like, I didn't notch this out for the corner of the plug, so I had to do that just really quickly with my angle grinder. But aside from that, the bracket, everything fit up very nicely how it was supposed to. And now we got ourselves onboard way of seeing the AFR while we're tuning this thing. The last time I was working on this quad, I had mentioned that there's a low, mid, and a high fuel trim adjustment knob on the Power FC module itself. And, you know, you can, without having to like go in, like download software and mess with the map itself, if you want to have a quick way of adjusting the fuel trim, you can do so by doing that. But when I was doing that, it needed low, or it needed more fuel on the low side in one specific area. But because it does a wider range, when I added and fixed the low side area that it was having issues with, idle and past that was richening way out, and it was choking it, and it was dying after like an idle of a minute. So I downloaded the software here, and it's pretty straightforward. So right now I've done a lot like figuring out, because I'm used to Mega Squirt with my Nissan, and so I'm trying to figure out how this DynoJet works, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. So 0% meaning that the fuel adjustment is nothing, and then if you go negative, that's less fuel, and then you add a positive number, that's more fuel. Look at that, an actual break in the nasty rain. It's actually dry and it feels like 55, 60. So customers coming today to pick up the quad. So what I'm gonna do really quick is take it out for one more quick spin and make sure the tune's good. Do some ripping, because this thing's fucking fast. So let's go get it out there and make sure everything's good. Oh, actually, there was one other quick thing that I did. I noticed the chain was incredibly loose, and I tightened that up because I noticed that when I was driving it and I was like letting it, you know, in first gear, no throttle, low RPM, letting the engine just like idle, move the quad, the chain was like jumping a whole lot, and I was like, that's not good. And then I stopped it, and you can, like, you know, it's loose when you're able to grab the chain and move it like this linearly, and you can see the chain just barely like shift on the, not side to side, shift against the teeth just like a little bit. So I tightened that up. Now the chain doesn't make any noise. It's its proper tightness, and now it won't come off or break or do something bad. So let's go rip this thing. The gauge here, but I have it tuned as of yesterday to show about 12.5, 12.7 on wide open, full load, doesn't slip. Now if it does slip, it should show about a 13.2, 13.5, but it's dry, so I don't expect it to slip. And about a light load, 13.8, 14. So we'll see what it looks like.
one, man. I saw it was leaning out, or it showed 14 because I hit rev limit like twice because I was not I was not expecting that. I think I gave first gear a little too much, but on that very last pull on final drive, it was 12.5, 12.7 the whole way. It felt really good.